Welcome along, fellow time travelers and strange historians. I have not done a live stream in a very long time, and wasn't sure I was going to do one, but what the hell? May as well. I turned off comments, and so you cannot leave a comment. But the reason why I turned off comments is because there's just too many negative flying monkeys in the world, and there's enough misery and poison in the world, so I don't need to give people an opportunity to leave nasty comments. But anyway, I know this is spontaneous, so I assume people will watch this later. But either way, I'm here in front of the Dakota. I'm on West 73rd Street in Central Park West. If you're just joining me, I'm in New York City. I'm in front of our Dakota. Our Dakota, isn't it? Ours. My favorite building, and possibly yours as well. Isn't it beautiful at night? I came to New York. As you know, I've spent a good portion of my life here. I was born in New York City. And I came to New York because a very kind and generous gentleman who is a Dakota resident invited me over and was kind enough to talk to me about the Dakota. And so here I am. I turned off comments. So I think I'm just going to keep the camera here, or maybe I'll walk around a little bit. I do not have a gimbal. I do have a very good camera with me. So when this live stream is over, I will do a proper exterior tour of the Dakota. But as of right now, the camera might be a bit bouncy because it's on my phone and I'm just kind of holding it. So if you want, I'll walk around a little bit and I'll talk to you. In fact, if I had comments on, I know a lot of people would ask me where Strawberry Fields is. So if you like, we will walk over to Strawberry Fields so you can see the proximity. So as you can see from here, it's difficult to point out, but you know, Lauren Bacall lived on this side. Leonard Bernstein lived on this side. Rudolf Nureyev lived on this side. And so they got a chance to face Central Park. But really, all apartments in the Dakota are great. So let's go for a little stroll, shall we? Once again, I apologize if the camera's a bit bouncy. I'm on my phone. This was spontaneous. Nobody knew I was doing this, not even me. So I came here. Yes, what day is this? Today's Friday. I came here Wednesday night. And Thursday, a very kind and generous gentleman met me who has lived in the Dakota for a few decades. And so he had great information to share with me, which I would like very much to share with you without violating any of his privacy. Basically, Dakota stuff. So here's one thing that I learned, which I think you'll find fascinating. You know how the restaurant used to be on that corner right there on the ground floor? So looking at floor plans over the years, I kind of wasn't sure. I knew there was a door, because I've seen it before, inside of the security office. And I knew that at one time it went all the way through, and then you could turn left and get to the lobby. But over the course of time, especially following the co-op conversion in around 1960, I figured that door was shut and that it was a private residence. Because it is a private residence. You see those two windows there on the ground floor? So that is a private residence. But what I didn't know is that you could pass through that door and follow a corridor and then turn left, and that would be to the lobby. So let's just talk about John and Yoko for a second, because obviously they're most famous people associated with the Dakota. So I was always under the impression that when John and Yoko came home, and this is possible, that they just walked straight through the main entryway and then went into the courtyard and turned right. And they probably did quite a bit. But all they had to do really is turn right and go into the security office and then go through the door, and then they could just follow the corridor and then go to either their lobby to bring them to the elevator, to bring them up to their apartment, which is on the 7th floor there, as you know, where the railing is. Or they could have passed through the lobby and then gone to Studio One, which is pretty cool. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, like I said, I looked at old floor plans and I saw that once upon a time you could do that, but I didn't know it was still like that. So if you have one of my books or if you watch one of my videos that have the floor plans, it's just interesting to be able to kind of follow that through and see that people live on this side, you know, that they could pass to the security office. The other thing that surprised me, and I'll talk about John Lennon again, even though you guys probably know this, that one of the reasons that I was interested in the Dakota is because it bothered me when I was a kid that all anybody knew about was, oh, that's where John Lennon died. And I knew, even when I was a kid, it bothered me because I would walk, you know, past the entryway and then people would stop and take their stupid ass photos smiling. Oh, look at me, in front of the Dakota, la la la, right? I mean, earlier today, I was at the 9/11 memorial, you know, at the World Trade Center. And you got all these freaking jackasses in front of the memorial smiling in front of their photos. And you know, you don't have to be a New Yorker or even an American to know that this is completely inappropriate. You don't go in front of a freaking memorial where 3,000 people died horribly, right? And take your stupid smiling photo. Oh, look where I was. And so anyway, when I was a kid, it bothered me that I would go past the Dakota and people would take their photo of, you know, where John Lennon bled to death, and then they'd go buy a slice of pizza. And so I said to myself, you know, I said this to my dad, I want to learn as much as I can about the Dakota and let people know that there's more to it than that this is where John Lennon died, right? So anyway, I've got a lot more to tell you about the Dakota. Interesting stuff, architectural and history stuff. But let me show you what Strawberry Fields is, because I know that a lot of people are interested in that sort of thing. And so what you would do if you saw the Double Fantasy album, right? So John and Yoko stood over there on that side, and then they would cross over. Did you just see my hand? Sorry. Uh-oh. Anyway, and by the way, I'm in no danger. If you're thinking, Scott, don't go into Central Park at night. It's cool. Don't sweat it. Besides, do you have any idea how popular this live stream would be if I die? This is where I was yesterday. It was kind of rainy, so I was kind of under here, which is lovely. So let's go into Strawberry Fields. Do me a favor, if I die, let me think. I forget, I don't really need anything. I don't know, watch my videos. Tell people, oh, Scott died, isn't that a shame? Or don't. All right, here we are. All right, maybe it is dangerous. No, it's not dangerous. Anyway, look how close it is. What's funny is, I don't want to beat up on Yoko Ono because I know she's a nice lady and she and I have mutual friends. But I think she said something once when they dedicated this, like, this was John Lennon's favorite spot in Central Park. And I'm thinking, come on, was it really his favorite spot? Right across the street from the Dakota? Maybe it was, I don't know. But anyway, this is the famous mosaic. By the way, this video is probably going to be taken down now or demonetized because of whatever song that is. Because that's how YouTube rolls. So this is what it's like if you're walking through Central Park at night and about to get mugged. Just kidding. So no, I'm showing you something for a reason, actually. We're going to go over here. And one of the things Yoko Ono did was she asked countries around the world to donate something to Strawberry Fields. Like, she said trees, which I thought was interesting because, well, not every tree is going to survive. And then she said something like, you know, or a rock. So I don't know how many rocks there are around here from, I don't know, Greece or Romania, if any. But there is a plaque here. If you can see, I'm trying to keep my shadow out of it. You've already seen my hand, you really need to see my shadow. So there's this cool plaque, and I guess, is it Yoko Ono maybe? Just kind of, you can't see it. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow in the daytime. But she just kind of thanks everybody, which is kind of cool, right? That contributed a tree or a rock. You know, you could bring a rock here. You can contribute a rock. Just throw it in there, like right in there. It'll be there in 1,000 years. It's not like someone's gonna walk around and take your rock. All right, let's walk around. It's an unusual thing for those of you who have been here or grew up here that I mean, it's called Strawberry Fields now, but I mean, I've been coming down this way my entire life. Is that weird? Do you have any places like that? I mean, I have memories of being 10 and being in front of the Dakota. Actually, you know, today, when I was down by the World Trade Center, I walked all the way to the end, and there's this old fort there, right? It's called Castle Clinton. And there are they had the cannons there, right? You know, in case anybody decides to invade Manhattan, they got the cannons ready. And so they have these, I don't know what they're called, I should know this. But either way, on the exterior of the fort, you know, it kind of just goes in, you know, because the cannons are on the other side. And I have photographs of myself when I was, oh geez, I don't know, 8 probably, 8 or 9. I was there with my mom. And I just kind of climbed inside of this and took a photo. Have anything like that ever happen? All right, so let's see. What should I do? Like I said, I'm sorry if I'm bouncing around a little bit. You know, I thought that YouTube offered, like right now this is vertical, right? I guess because you can watch it on your phone, but they don't seem to offer a horizontal way of shooting this. So let me say something before I continue. So yesterday, for those of you just joining us, a very kind and generous gentleman met me. He was kind enough to invite me over to talk about the Dakota because he knew how interested I was in it. And so what I want to say very briefly is if you ever have the opportunity in your life to do something really kind for somebody, that would really be a big milestone in their life in a positive way, right? I mean, always do positive things when you can. But if you ever have the chance to do that, you really should. Because I really can't thank this gentleman enough for giving me the information that he did and sharing the beautiful stories he has of his life in the Dakota. So here we go. A lot of people, you know, photographs don't really do it justice. And so you can see that there's this light well. A lot of people like to call it a moat. I call it a light well. We know that the Dakota was built between 1880 and 1884, and there just wasn't any freaking electricity, right? I mean, actually, it's not true. Edison got everything going in 1882. And so by the time the Dakota was built, yeah, there was electricity. But either way, when they started building it in 1880, if you said to Edward C. Clarke and Henry Hardenberg, hey, electricity will be around soon, they wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about. And so you've got these beautiful windows, right? And they're really below grade, right? Because this is the basement. And so you've got this light well here. A lot of people think, oh, it's security. And I guess in a way, sure, it's security. Nobody's going to jump up from this railing into one of these windows, right? But either way, this allowed sunlight to be able to penetrate through these windows and into the basement. So let me tell you a little bit about this. Hopefully this won't bore you to death. So this corner right here, the ground floor, this was the original restaurant, right? And for those of you who saw my video, originally Henry Hardenberg had this idea that maybe it should be public, and there was going to be a staircase built. I think it was like dead center, right? So it'd be like right here. Now, could you imagine that? So it's 1884, and you're walking around Central Park, and you say, hey, Harry, you know, if you had a friend named Harry, or, you know, whatever their name is, Harry, let's go grab a sandwich. Great, Martha. Where should we get a sandwich? Well, you know, the Dakota has a restaurant. Oh, does it? Yeah. And it's not like there's a Bennigan's or a Fridays or a Cheesecake Factory anywhere, so this would be it. So they could have cleaned up, but they didn't do it, right? They didn't. And maybe that's for the best, because my goodness, that would have been quite a staircase to go up here. So anyway, this was the original restaurant. So you've got this area, you've got this, and then towards the end was, I guess what they called a cafe, yeah? Even back then, it was a cafe. And so it was probably for times when it wasn't so busy, so they didn't have to have the whole restaurant opened. And even the other side also was a small private room. But what's fascinating is that within this building, towards the back of it, was a staircase. And where that staircase went was down into the basement. And so this was the whole kitchen area underneath. And so you'd be up there, right, in your fancy clothes, right, with your sparkling jewelry, ordering your mango soup, or whatever the hell it is people ordered. And I would have gotten mango soup, by the way. That sounds good. Does it sound good? Maybe it doesn't sound good. And then you'd have the restaurant. I'm sorry, you would have the kitchen down here. And that's what was going on. Isn't that cool? It's impossible, in my opinion, to take a bad photograph of the Dakota. Every part of it's beautiful. It bothers me, you know, you've probably heard me say it a million times, when people think that the Dakota is depressing and dark and dreary and I will never go near that. Now, it's nighttime right now. It's 10 to 11 at night on a Friday. And even at night, you can see this is really a beautiful building. And it's not dark. I think too many people saw the photos of John and Yoko in the 70s, right? When the exterior of the building, by no fault of the building itself, was just covered in soot, right? Decades and decades of soot, which have been cleaned off. And so it's really a beautiful building with this great, like, you know, buff yellow brick, yeah? These massive stones. Oh, you know what else I found out, which was interesting? You know, the ground floor, the ceilings are 15 feet in height, right? And so it seems to me, just doing some math, because I knew that they lowered incrementally towards the top. And when you look at real estate text, right, it's like 13-foot ceilings, 12-foot ceilings, 10-foot ceilings, right? And you don't know if that's freaking accurate or not. But there's two things that I learned yesterday. I kind of knew, but I got confirmation of it, right? One is that I know that a lot of people don't like the AC units. Oh, it's another thing I found out. This is great. And I should have known this, by the way. So I admit that there were some things I just didn't know or didn't think about. But the AC units aren't actually out, in or out, out, in. They aren't there for most of the year. So it's a little bit cool out right now, but it's not cold, right? But it's the end of September. But I guess in about a week or so, a lot of the AC units are going to be taken in. And so they won't come back out again until, you know, when they're needed in the springtime. So anyway, let me back up. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So I figured, okay, well, maybe they lower incrementally half a foot all the way up. But I think it's about 9 inches, right? I think that's the estimate. Maybe 9 inches, maybe a little bit more. You know, it's 3 feet between the floor levels, right? I think just like the thickness of the walls, right? So it's about 3 feet in between, and it's brick, but it's also, and this is pretty famous, if you read Stephen Birmingham's book, he talked about it, they put layers of dirt from Central Park between the flooring, and that was not only for soundproofing, but also for fireproofing. That's kind of fascinating, right? So, okay, so, also, some ceilings are going to be lower than others because they installed central AC. And so in order to do that, they actually have to drop the ceilings, which I already knew, but it was interesting just to get some confirmation of that yesterday. So some people do that, some people don't. But I was in a beautiful apartment yesterday, and he did have, I think he said, and I don't know if this is completely accurate, but I think he said he had 3 AC units. Let me tell you something, quiet as a mouse. Quiet as a freaking mouse. This isn't like, you know, Sanford and Son or something with the AC roaring. I don't even know if that happened in that show. But you know what I mean. It's not like it was some Home Depot $185 AC unit making some click, 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 clanky, 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 you know, crazy ass noises. No, these are good AC units and just quiet as a mouse. So I know a lot of people bitch about that, but it's like, chill. It's all right. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a beautiful apartment in the Dakota with high ceilings, right? And half the year you've got AC units, which are quiet as a freaking mouse, or would you rather drop the ceilings and lose that ceiling height? So you decide. Your decision, but just remember, if you do that, it's great. You know, you're doing it for your own comfort. That's wonderful. But do you really own your Dakota apartment, or are you kind of a caretaker for it, for future generations? Because once you drop the ceiling, that's something that you have to think about. Everybody else who owns that apartment in the future has got to deal with that. You want that responsibility? That's up to you. It's up to you. I should have comments on. Would you guys behave? I think it's too late. Some people just don't behave, so I have to have the comments off. Because listen, I can't really read them now anyway, because I'm trying to show you this stuff. I'm anticipating. You know what I found out? Actually, what was interesting also is you see that there's this area, right, that's underneath the Dakota, and that particular part of the building doesn't, I think, it's probably a little bit of a legally thing. I don't really know how it works, but it's not necessarily part of the Dakota because it's under the city street. And so I assume what that means, that if something happens here in the sidewalk, that it's the city's responsibility to fix it or take care of it. Who knows how that works? But anyway, that was interesting to see. Isn't this awesome? Look how beautiful this is. Good evening, how are you? Dragging them?
Yeah. She's tired.
I know you're probably the most photographed man on earth, but I will be considerate enough and not put you on camera, all right? All right, thanks, brother. So this is a sentry box. And what's interesting is if you look at some of my old photos, because I have some from the late 1800s, and this wasn't the original one. The original one actually had a flat top, right? And it's probably made out of wood. I'm going to turn the camera this way because I'm very, very conscious of the fact that the last thing you want to do is probably look at me. And if I would have just kept walking like that, you may have seen me in the reflection. And you'd be like, oh God, Scott ruined the whole damn video. I got to stare at him. The other reason I don't have comments on is because people would be like, it's haunted, it's scary, it's creepy. It's not. This is a beautiful, beautiful building. My God, it's beautiful. Think about, I mean, just the warmth, right, of the type of architecture that it is. It just gives you this great sense of home, of history. This has been standing here since the 1880s, right? And the whole city has changed around it. But the Dakota hasn't changed. Actually, you see this building right here? It's called, of course it has to slip my mind right now, hold on. It's the, oh, I know it. Oh God, forget I said it, skip over this. As soon as I stop thinking about it. This is the San Remo. Oliver Cromwell. The Oliver Cromwell. And I've actually been in this tower. There's a gentleman that I've been friendly with, a really nice guy. And some of the photographs that I've taken of the Dakota, such as the Indian face, which is way freaking high. You're not seeing that from down here, that I can tell you. And so that gentleman was kind enough to be able, and I want to thank him also. What a kind and generous thing he did. He knew that I was interested in the Dakota. I contacted him once and says, would you mind if I came over? I would love to get some photographs of the Dakota's roof and that Indian face. And by that time, you know, I had written a bunch of books and done some documentaries, so it's not like I was some creepy guy. Maybe I am, but no, I'm not. And he invited me over, which was cool, and we became friends, a nice guy. But I took some great photos from there. Carly Simon used to live there. You know who Carly Simon is, that clouds in my coffee lady? I don't know what else she's saying. Didn't she sing that Heinz ketchup commercial, whatever that's called? Slow ketchup. Slow Condiment. What the hell's the name of that song? You know. I don't even know the name of it. Carly Simon. But anyway, this is a famous building. A lot of famous mobsters lived here, you probably know. Meyer Lansky and Charlie Luciano lived here. I think, and Frank Costello, yeah? They shared an apartment way up freaking high. This isn't the original. Oh God, did I call it the San Remo? Okay, sorry. It's late night. Let me tell you why, okay? Let me tell you why my mind is a bit frazzled. And when I tell you why, you're gonna completely understand why. I just went to a Broadway show. You know what I saw? Book of Mormon. Did you ever see it? I wanted to go to a Broadway show, and it was last minute, and I thought, well, let me see what I could find. I didn't want to see Chicago, for crying out loud. And I didn't know The Great Gatsby was on Broadway. That seemed kind of cool. And so I saw, Book of Mormon. That's interesting. I'm not Mormon, but maybe it's funny. And so I went to see that, and my God, that's offensive. And I'm not Mormon, let me tell you. But man, did you see Book of Mormon? Holy, so anyway, my brain is still frazzled from that. Holy cow. All right, so anyway, you want to walk around? Should we walk around the entire perimeter of the building? I'm going to do this again after this live stream is over with my proper camera. But since I haven't done a live stream in forever, here we go. The weather's very nice, by the way. I think it's supposed to rain at midnight. And it's 11 o'clock, but we'll get this done. Aren't the windows massive? A lot of people have asked me if all of the different railings, if they're different, and they're not. It's actually the same. So who do you want to call? Some people call him Neptune and his sea monsters, and others call him Poseidon. Which do you prefer? Poseidon's kind of cool, right? A lot of people don't think about Neptune, but they're the same dude, same guy, different name, right? It's like Dick and Richard, or that's not a good example. You know what I mean. Anyway, sea monster, Poseidon. Looking thrilled to be alive. All right, let's walk around. So you got the buff yellow brick, right? All right, we're gonna get educational now. Buff yellow brick there, buff yellow brick down there. And notice the height, right? Not too deep, right? Kind of deep, but not too deep, yeah? So let's walk around. This subway, by the way, wasn't always here. It was added later. So the railing used to go all the way around, but then they removed this part of the railing. Wouldn't you like to know where this is? Right, whatever they took down. Well, maybe they just moved it. So anyway, we can go into the subway, but we won't. So this was part of the original restaurant. This was sort of a private dining room right there. And then once you get here, you get into the residential area. So let's take a quick look at the light well. So not too deep either, right? I'm getting somewhere with this, don't worry. I'm getting somewhere. But I just want you to see how the depth of the light well. So let's walk along. I would love to solve a mystery, by the way. And I wonder if there's anybody out there who could help. Because right now, nobody seems to know the answer. And we'll go back around to the entry again later. But they're the two faces, right? And one is Isaac Singer, and the other one was his last wife, Isabella Boyer. But there's two faces here too. And it's a freaking mystery. No one knows who the hell they are. I can't even guess. I've stared at photos of these for the longest time. It's not Edward C. Clarke. I don't think it's any of his children, not his wife. So it's kind of a mystery. But you think that they must be important, right? Because in the front, you've got Isaac Singer, who was a pretty important part of Edward C. Clarke's life, and Isabella Boyer. But as far as these two, it's a freaking mystery. And we just don't know. It must have been fantastic. Could you imagine when the Dakota was built, right? 1884, late 1800s, and you could hear the cars, right? No freaking cars back then. Actually, Yes, horse-drawn carriages, right? And even trolley cars. There were actually trolley tracks here at one point, but it was compacted dirt for quite a while. All right, so now we're going to start getting interesting. So you see how it's round, right? It's kind of like curves. Not really round, you know what I mean? Kind of curves. I kind of like that. Isn't that cool? Sort of curves along. Now, what do you notice that's different? Red brick. Now you might say to yourself, well, of course it's red brick. It's the back of the building. But is it the back of the building? Because this side faces Central Park West. And so really it's this side that gets seen the most, right? And the entry's on the south side, right? Which is where we just were on West 72nd Street. But does this necessarily, would you consider this to be the backyard? I mean, West 73rd Street is not a major thoroughfare, but it is a thoroughfare, right? Yeah, let's go in the middle. So it's not as wide as West 72nd Street, but in any event, I don't consider this to be the back of the building. Now, the buff yellow brick does continue. There's no doubt about that. It's just that I don't understand why they didn't continue it along the basement level. Now, is it possible that by this time Edward C. Clark had died? And so his family is like, just finish the freaking building. Stop spending all that damn money on that brick. Each one costs us like, 33 cents. Get some red brick. That might be like 18 cents. So anyway, look how much deeper it is over here, right? Many years ago, when I wrote my first book about the Dakota, I think I told this story before, I wanted to figure out how deep these were, right? How deep this light well was. And what I did is I knew the size of bricks, right? So what I did is I just counted the bricks. I was like Rain Man. So to go, okay, well, it's 200 inches times, So I did that. All right, what should I do now? Do you want me to walk along this side? Or should I cross the street? I think I'm going to cross the street real quick. This, by the way, is the Langham. If you ever saw the Woody Allen movie, Hannah and Her Sisters, that was filmed in Mia Farrow's apartment inside Langham, which I believe belonged to her mom. Who knows who her mom was? Did you ever see the old Tarzan movies with Johnny Weissmuller? Her mom played Jane. I think what I'll do is I'll walk mid-block and then I'll cross the street so you can see the entryway on the north side, which isn't open, by the way. Originally, the story is that it was created in order for servants to be able to come and go, yeah? That way they're not going through the main entryway with all the frou-frou rich people in the late 1800s. But I think it was probably a security issue, perhaps, even back then. Or maybe it was just a hassle, right? How would you like to be a maid for somebody living in the Dakota and you got to go out for the eggs and the cheese and the French bread? And you're like, I got to walk to West 73rd Street just to go into the freaking building? Maybe not that big of a deal. All right, let's cross the street, shall we? So this is the north entryway. Obviously not as ornate, but ornate. I like it. Isn't pretty? Once again, this is not used by anybody, I think, at any time. There's a story, I think, in Stephen Birmingham's book, that when people die, they bring their coffins or their bodies out this way. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's true. I mean, look, they don't throw them out the window, okay? But I'm just saying that they probably get them out the delivery entryway. Maybe. I don't really know. I should have asked. I should find this out. It's kind of a weird conversation to have. Hi, thanks for inviting me into the Dakota. I love your apartment. Hey, I got a question. It's a little uncomfortable. But anyway, isn't it beautiful? And you could see into the courtyard a little bit. Yeah. All right, let's continue walking. So you see the red brick continues, right? You have these beautiful round-headed windows. Imagine the fact that they went through this extra effort, right, to create these ornate wrought iron grills. Oh, you know what? Can you see down there a little bit? Look how deep it is. I want to drop my phone. It's freaking deep. Okay, so let's cross over. Let's go over to the west side. So once again, here's my question for you. Do you consider this to be the back of the building because the main entryway is on the complete other side? Or do you consider this to be the back? Because I sure do. And yet, look, presto, all red brick. Now this has always been of interest to me because for those of you who have been to New York and know New York well, you know that sooner or later someone's going to put another freaking building up against yours, or whatever the regulations are, 3 inches away, whatever it is. And so why go through too much effort, right? And so you could think to yourself, well, that's probably why, Scott, duh. But not really. You see, that's the delivery. Well, that's the entryway to the delivery, right? The delivery entrance right down there. And so this right here it's paved now. But once upon a time, right, let's just say 1800s, right? But whatever. But this is where the horse-drawn carriages would go down in order to be able to drop things off there. And so there was never going to be a building, at the very least, right here. That wasn't going to happen because there would have been no way to be able to get into the basement, right? So there's that. But second, you see this building right here? We're not going to talk about this building, by the way. My apologies to anybody who lives in this building, but you think what I think. Come on. They could have made a nicer freaking building. It's lovely. It is. But you know. All right. So you see that down there? So once upon a time, there were the original electric generators underneath. This was called Clark Park. This was fenced in, and it was for the exclusive use of people who lived in the Dakota. And so it was a place to hang, right? Crochet, right? Whatever it is that you want to do. Now you might be saying to yourself, Scott, what do you mean? They got Central Park right there. What the hell do they need a private park for? I don't know. He owned the property and he had the electric generators under there. And so it's just a private park, but not only for Dakota residents, but Edward C. Clark actually owned, you see the building that the Langham's on? So he owned that. He also owned all of this property as well. And so he hired Henry Janeway Hardenberg to design brownstones, right? Townhomes for this entire street. Because what he wanted to do is create a neighborhood for the Dakota. I mean, it's bad enough that poor building was here all by itself, right? How lonely is that? But it couldn't have any friends, right? So Henry Hardenberg and Edward C. Clark probably got together and says, hey, let's create some townhomes, and that way the Dakota has somebody to talk to, right? If buildings could talk, the Dakota could be like, hi, how are you, building? And they could just talk to each other. Yes, I'm really like this. Sorry. I'll try to be more professional. Anyway, in 1884, they didn't. So anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think that because Clark Park was here, and so there was no anticipation of another structure being built here at any time? Well, you know something? Let's use this example, a real life example. And so here's a building, right? Whether or not Edward C. Clark and Henry Hardenberg ever planned for a building to be here, well, lo and behold, here's a freaking building. And yet, here's the back of the Dakota, a beautiful building, but they didn't do jack on this side. What are your thoughts about this? Edward C. Clark was rolling in freaking dough. This could have been buff yellow brick. Why isn't it? Could they not manufacture enough? Did they just not care? Did they figure, well, it's the back of the building? Because think about it, you had people that were living here. They didn't own the apartments prior to the co-op conversion, around 1960, prior to, let's just say 1959, everybody that lived in the Dakota was a renter, right? They were a renter. But either way, it was a lot of bread to rent. And so this was their freaking view, minus the AC units, of course. Now, once upon a time, there were some ornate, awnings, right? Those didn't freaking last, right? Because, they were material. So it's just kind of a mystery, to me anyway, why they didn't make it more ornate. Because at some point, well, back when it was built, everybody that was here in Clark Park, or anybody that lived in these buildings over here, or anybody walking by, could have continued to see more. Look, everything stopped. So just forget about the yellow brick for a second. That didn't continue. But even, you got the round-headed windows, great, right over here. But even the terracotta, you see that? Where is it? Can you see it from here? You see that above the round-headed windows on the second floor? So that didn't even continue. You don't have any balconies. You would think, well, put some balconies. Anyway, listen, I don't want to beat up on the Dakota. You guys know I love the building. It's just a mystery. It's just a little bit of a mystery that it would be cool to find out what the answer is. And we may never know. Here's another thing that I learned. I kind of knew, but it was interesting to get some confirmation about how incredibly easy it is for Dakota residents to take see, I didn't know that the elevators went all the way down to the basement. I thought, okay, you've got 8 elevators, right? And they were originally hydraulic. And I thought, okay, it makes sense that the elevators for the staff, right? The service elevators that would go down to the basement, because you're getting deliveries and you've got the staff and they're going to go into the basement. That makes sense. I didn't know until yesterday that the residential elevators went down there as well. But that's neither here nor there, because, and like I said, I hate bringing up John Lennon all the time, but I know you guys are interested in that. But I didn't know how easy it was for John Lennon to just go right down to the basement. And why? He went in and out that front door as often as he did. The front entryway is crazy to me. This was one of the most famous men in the world. And look, and we know how it ended for the poor guy. And considering how easy it was, listen, I'm on West 73rd Street right now, right? And it's 2024 as I'm recording this. But it doesn't really matter what year it is. It's a relatively quiet, pretty, tree-lined street. John Lennon, anytime he wanted to leave, he could have just gone out that door right there. So easy. So easy. And even as far as, you see this driveway here? Okay, so he's coming and going in a limo. Go down here, man. Go freaking down here. Get out. And go through there, and live to see the morning, right? Nobody expects to die, right? People are dying in car crashes all the time. People are dying in plane crashes. Nobody leaves in the morning and says, well, today I'll probably die. Actually, I do that. But most normal people don't expect to die. So John Lennon probably, but my God, come on. What was he thinking? He could have gone in and out of that door for the rest of his life, however long that would have been. And everything would have been Jake, right? Everything would have been cool. But he didn't. And he could have just turned right here, walked right up this way. Easiest thing in the world. And if you wanted to go to Central Park, it's right there. And if he wanted to go to a cafe or go to get his dry cleaning, or whatever it is that John Lennon wanted to do, go buy the latest, ABBA album, Ted Nugent, whatever, go down this way and everything would have been cool. He didn't do it. So let me show you how close it was, just so you know. Now clearly, this is a parking garage, right? And it wasn't there when the Dakota was built. But that's probably about the level of where the electrical plant was that Edward C. Clark had built. underneath Clark Park. Probably about that level. But anyway, see, so here's the door right here. And don't ever try to go into the Dakota, by the way. Plenty of security. These people that live there deserve their privacy. There's nothing unusual about this. People walk, up and down this way all the time. It's no big deal. I mean, obviously people drive this way, go into the garage, they walk down there. But I'm just showing you how close it is, how easy it would have been for John Lennon to just go out that door, right? Go to West 73rd Street, and that's it. Didn't have to get shot like an animal in the woods. So this is West 73rd. I'm sorry, West 72nd. Sorry. Long day. West. I know this. Long day. And so we're back to the light well, which clearly is on both sides. Now, by the way, John Lennon did go this way. There are stories of him doing this. In fact, I think he even mentioned that he did this. And after he passed away, I believe when Ringo, I could be wrong about this. When Julian came here, he had got on a plane and he came here. I think they brought him through the back way. I think Ringo went through the front. I can't imagine why. Maybe not. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments below. The Majestic. That's what it's called. This is the second Majestic that was here. There was actually the Hotel Majestic that was here originally, but it was torn down in order to build this Majestic. Okay, I'm going to show you the the engravings of where Isaac Singer and Isabella Boyer are. So you can see on the left-hand side there, you see that one? Right there? All right, so that's Isaac Singer. And then I made a video about this recently, and so this one right there is Isabella Boyer, who may or may not, but probably was, the model for the Statue of Liberty. So there's that. By the way, you notice how I'm the only person here? Does this happen to you in your life? The number of times that I go to places and I'm pretty much all alone. Like nobody's around. I mean, okay, you got the guard there, right? And he's talking to some guy. But for the most part, I'm in front of the most famous apartment building in the world. And it's a Friday night. And there's nobody around. All right, so I'm gonna go across the street, back where I started. I'll do another video, like I said, after this ends with my better camera, which will be a lot smoother. So I might take this down and then I'll put that up instead. So if you're watching this, you're one of the few that'll probably ever see it. I might change my mind about that, or I might not. Grab your Double Fantasy album right now. This is where John and Yoko were standing. That photo was taken right about here. So the photographer was probably right there. And then they were standing right here, because you can see, this is where they were standing. Have you ever sat on these benches? Just think, you can come here and you can look up at the Dakota, and you can, if you look just like that, this would be the same exact view that somebody sitting here, if you block out the noise, right, turn off the volume, which should probably be for the best anyway, but you right now could be looking at the Dakota in 1884, right? I'm purposely not showing you any of the buildings around it, but this is the view: 1884, 1889, 1905, 1912, 1928, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. Well, not that bus, but this is it. Unchanged. And always filled with incredibly interesting people. After all, what kind of person chooses to live in a building like this, right? Even today, you really have to have quite an interesting way to think, because there's so many new buildings built, right? And if you have the bread to live in the Dakota, you've got the bread to live anywhere you want. And so I have a great deal of respect for the types of people who make the decision to choose the Dakota to be their home, you know? So, what do you think? If you're rolling in dough, would you live in any of these apartments? Kindly let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think I should do more live streams? I'm gonna try to, next time I'll have a gimbal. Like I said, this was sort of spontaneous. I didn't know that I was going to do this. I'm just kind of here and I'm jumping on it. I thought some of you might find this interesting, and so that's what I'm doing. I could do another live stream later, walking through Times Square. Have you ever done that? That's scary. I actually shot a video earlier. I could probably just upload it, but live might be interesting. I could go there around midnight. It's 11:30 now. It's only like a 20-minute walk. Is this the best place to end the, yeah. I could end it where I started. Let's go over here. What do you prefer? You want to see the Dakota some more? Or do you like this kind of walk? You know, the Dakota, New York City has all sorts of problems. The politicians are vile. They really are. They're vile and corrupt people. Pretty much always have been. And money is spent in all kinds of ways that it shouldn't be, and money that isn't spent properly. So it's got all kinds of horrible problems, especially now. But it really is, in many ways, very beautiful. A lot of that is probably because of Central Park, at least up here. I mean, honestly, for those of you who aren't familiar with New York, did you know that Central Park was this close and that you could go in? I mean, let me just tell you how it works. There's no path right here, and I'm not going in there, but you can walk into Central Park, and once you get about 10 feet in, it's like the city doesn't exist anymore, right? You're completely surrounded in many places with beautiful trees and bushes and paths. And so, yeah, you're in New York City, you're in this famous city, this enormous city with, what, 8 million plus people, right? And yet you can go into Central Park and completely clear your mind and forget the city exists. In fact, if you don't look east or south or west, that's where the tall buildings are. not really, no tall buildings really in Harlem that you'd be able to see. But you could go right into Central Park and you're in this beautiful, like a totally different world, right? You know, the north side of the building doesn't get enough attention. Most people that go to the Dakota, they take a photo of the south side and that's it. But the north side is beautiful. And let me tell you, the people that live on this side of the building, they get a pretty good deal. Because, you know, they get views of Central Park as well. And the Langham's a very beautiful building, so they get a view of that. So there we are. Until next time, I wish you safe travels on all your journeys.